So last week, the former head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Richard Cordray, was an Obama appointee, stepped down from that position that, like I said, happened on Friday. Now, people step down from positions all the time. They go and take new positions. Now, again, that's fairly routine, right? Now, what's not routine is the fact that President Trump has seized on this opportunity to appoint his own pick to the position. And that, of course, has created a firestorm. Because, well, okay, let me get into the situation. Upon stepping down, Richard Cordray had actually picked his own successor to take over the CFPB. As of today, weirdly enough, both that pick and Mick Mulvaney, which is Trump's pick, showed up to work. Both as acting director. Uh-oh, that's a little weird. Now, Mulvaney, I'm going to be honest, I have a bias against Mulvaney. That is somebody that I do not want to see in this position because he's not somebody that I generally think is a defender of consumers. Okay, so I've got a bias. I do have a dog in this fight. Let's be honest about that. I know I absolutely am. And I think all of you also have a dog in this fight. So, but anyway, so Trump's pick is Mick Mulvaney, right? The officer of management and budget. This guy who wants to cut your Social Security. And Cordray's pick is somebody named Leandra English. Now, both of them, like I said, they showed up for work on Monday. That led to some moments of awkwardness, and what made it even more awkward is that Leandra English is now suing to prevent Mulvaney from taking that spot. According to Politico, on Sunday night, lawyers for Leandra English, whom Richard Cordray named the effective acting director when he resigned on Friday, filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, seeking to halt the appointment of Mick Mulvaney, who serves as head of the Office of Management and Budget and is also named in the lawsuit. Both Mulvaney and English were present at the CFPB Monday morning. There was even a picture of Mulvaney hard at work at the CFPB. Hard at work doing what? I couldn't tell you. Now, they also report that Mulvaney has been given full access to the CFPB director's office with full cooperation from its staff, according to a senior White House official telling CNN. Now, they also added that he brought donuts for the new staff. Oh, donuts. Wonderful. So now we're just supposed to forget how you basically are going to work on behalf of the corporations and not the citizens. But hey, donuts, man. Who could be a bad person that brings donuts, man? Yeah, Mick Mulvaney. But anyway. Now, English, according to a source familiar with the matter, was also president of the Bureau, but it was not clear if she and Mulvaney had interacted. And maybe, I don't know, if they had interacted, we would probably know about it, because it would not be pretty. Now, it would not be pretty because, as I said, Mulvaney, when he was in Congress, he voted to kill the Bureau in order to please his donors. Now, again, that was in Congress. Since joining the Trump administration, he's actually worked to roll back some of the agency's rules. He, of course, like a lot of the people in the Trump administration, think regulations that protect consumers are so harmful to jobs and business. Why don't we just let these companies do whatever they want and screw over whoever they want? Because then they'll create jobs. No, that's not what happens. These people just end up getting screwed over by these giant corporations, and they create no jobs. And what kind of business model is that anyway? No, we're going to let them exploit workers and regular people so that we can create more jobs for the workers that are also going to be exploited. That, again, makes no sense, but that's, unfortunately, that's American capitalism circa 2017. Okay. Now, he says that these regulations, funny enough, are burdensome to these gigantically rich corporations. The richest corporations on earth. Now, think about that. These companies are the wealthiest entities in the planet. And these rules that are enforced by this bureau, right, that keep them from exploiting consumers, those are considered burdensome. How dare you try to stop us from screwing people over for profit. Don't you know that we are here to wring every last penny from the consumer? Yeah, we know. Turns out we don't like being screwed over. And actually, we like that there's an agency that is out there looking out for us against the corporations. And I'm not saying we just as liberals, a majority of Americans feel the same way. I've got a poll for you. This is back in 2013, okay? Now, in a 2013 survey, 8 in 10 voters, after hearing a short description of the agency, expressed their support for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, while nearly half expressed strong support. So, man, that's a really high approval rating for a government agency. Now, you might say, oh, yeah, but Jeff, that's 2013. That's 4 years ago. Obviously, throughout that time, they have done so much overreach with their burdensome regulations that are strangling those businesses. Okay, well, let's go to a poll done by the same organization that happened in July of this year. So 2017 is only a couple months old, right? Would that be better? Now, the poll conducted by the bipartisan partners Lake Research Partners and Chesapeake Bay Consulting found that 74% of voters were in favor of the work of the CFPB. That same poll also found that 78% of likely voters say that tough rules and enforcement are needed to prevent the kinds of practices that led to the 2008 financial crisis. Now, if you break this down by party, you've got 85% of Democrats who are in support, 81% of independents, which is really important, and even a majority, 67% of Republicans that hold this view that this kind of organization in the government is very, very important in preventing another financial crash and protecting consumers. But of course, these companies, no, don't care. Mick Mulvaney also doesn't care. He says, no, let's get rid of him. Yeah, your opinion is all nice and stuff, but I've got donors to please. And that's exactly what's going on. Now, look, the point of me bringing up these polls is that this agency is incredibly popular among the people. Again, even a majority of Republicans feel that the banks and the corporations have way too much influence and power, and they need an organization to keep them in place, to keep them in check, okay? Rein in that excess and protect consumers. Well, that person is not Mick Mulvaney. So, look, if you're somebody who supports Trump but also thinks, hey, I'm getting screwed over by the banks and corporations, well, you've got a choice here. Do you support a corporate stooge that Donald Trump appointed, or the rightful, in my opinion, appointee to the Bureau? Somehow I have little faith that hardcore Trump supporters will make the right choice. But again, prove me wrong. Please prove me wrong. Okay. Now back to the Politico and this lawsuit, because it gets very interesting. It gets very complex when you're talking about constitutional law and who has the right to appoint what, and what are the powers of the agency versus the power of the president. Now, in their court filing, attorneys for English argued that she is entitled to that position under Dodd-Frank. Now, Dodd-Frank, of course, created that agency and says that the deputy director, when the agency's top spot is vacant, which is what happened when Cordray stepped down, then the deputy director becomes the director. Now, when Cordray resigned, he specifically named English, then his chief of staff, who then he named her as deputy director. Then he stepped down, which established her as the Bureau's acting director. So, look, Cordray, he's like, yeah, I'm stepping down. I know I'm stepping down. Hey, English, yeah, you are now deputy director. And now, essentially, this will all be yours, the CFPB. Now, right-wingers, Republicans are seizing on that fact, going, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. Doesn't the president get his pick? And so the president picked Mulvaney, and now we got a fight on our hands. We got a good old-fashioned constitutional battle going on. Now, this is a fight, by the way, that's never been seen before. This has never happened. Never has an official working in the White House been installed as the head of an independent agency, and never has somebody who was left appointed someone in the way that Cordray has. So again, this is a very interesting fight. Now, for me, I think it's fairly clear. Cordray was definitely within his rights to elevate her to that position and then leave, effectively making her his successor. That's fairly clear. Under Dodd-Frank, he has that ability to control that independent agency. Now, Mulvaney still has a way to become the director of the CFPB, but that, of course, involves congressional approval. So, look, here's the way that I see it, right? Until the Senate confirms Mulvaney, English is in charge. She is the director. And look, could this happen? Well, that would be getting into the politics of the Senate. And that would be an interesting fight as well, because Republicans have a very slim majority in the Senate, and we don't know which direction some of the senators will go on the CFPB. So maybe some of the more moderate Republicans might be like, well, no, well, we want to keep the current director, who is more friendly to consumers, because look, the problem with Mulvaney is his stance on the CFPB to begin with, and we know he's been wanting to destroy it, water it down, and essentially eliminate it, and he's been working with President Trump to try and do that. How many Republicans that we could get on the side of protecting that, I don't know, but it looks really bad going against an agency and putting someone in charge of an agency who wants to destroy said agency that is actually really popular. So that's sort of how the politics will play out of it. It'll be very interesting to see if they actually do such things based on popular opinion. But like I said, the way that they can do this is they can wait for Mulvaney to get confirmed by the Senate. Now, Trump doesn't want to do that. He's going to do what he always does and try to strong arm, try to Donkey Kong his way until he gets what he wants. And I'm sorry, that's not going to work. Under Dodd-Frank, the director gets to choose a replacement. And I know this is a constitutional question of, hey, doesn't the president get to appoint certain people? But the way that I see it right now, and I could be wrong, I'm not a constitutional law scholar, I don't think president's powers have been infringed on at all in this case. So far. So far. He still was able to make his appointment. He's just got to wait for the Senate to do their job. So, look, Mulvaney should not be starting work. He's not the active director. He should wait for the proper procedure for the Senate. Now, the White House, of course, came out with its own statement after this lawsuit and said, the administration is aware of the suit filed this evening by Deputy Director English. However, the law is clear. Director Mulvaney is the acting director of the CFPB. This is Sarah Huckabee Sanders in a statement. She says, now that the CFPB's own general counsel, who was hired under Richard Cordray, has notified the Bureau's leadership that she agrees with the administration's and the DOJ's reading of the law, there should be no question that Director Mulvaney is the acting director. It is unfortunate that Mr. Cordray decided to put his political ambition above the interest of consumers with this stunt. It is funny how she mentions consumers, because again, I've pointed out how Mulvaney has not voted in favor of consumers, but actually against. And it makes you wonder why Trump appointed him. I wonder. Again, if you want to point out that English on Cordray's last day was made deputy director for the purpose of replacing him on purpose, okay, that's a fair point, but I think that is within his power. Now, the White House, as you heard, painting this as a constitutional issue as well as a political issue, and lawyers for English is saying that this is Trump who, Trump has simply overextended his executive power in order to get rid of the agency that he doesn't like. To me, I think it's all of those things. What powers the president has in this situation, how it plays out politically. It's all interesting questions, right? And you guys know my bias here. I think she's the director under the power of Dodd-Frank until the Senate gets rid of Mulvaney. I keep having to say that. That to me seems like the obvious solution. But with any of these fights that Trump has instigated and these power struggles that are going on. We'll have to see how it eventually plays out. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.